So yeah, one of the basic things that any investigation needs, any investigation kit needs. There we go. Lightsaber. Because, I mean, what's an investigation without a lightsaber? Alright, let's get serious. Boom. What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome back to another video. In today's episode, we are going to talk about my investigation kit. Because every time I show up at a paranormal event, whether it's a ghost hunt, UFOs, Bigfoot, or like a conference, or whatever, even lectures, or talks by paranormal enthusiasts, the first question I get is, if I don't believe in this shit, why do I even do it? Why am I here? Which is interesting, and it's a good question to delve into, but I'm not going to do that right now. The second question that I usually get is, when I'm investigating, what do I bring? What kind of tools or gear? What do I bring to investigate? And that's what I really want to address, because it comes up so often that I figure I'll make a video, and maybe if some of the devices that I go through, some of the tools that I go through, you haven't thought of, you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to try that and see how it works for you. So my investigation kit is here. This is it, right here. And real cool story, before we even get into the tools, what's inside this bag. I got this at a Comic-Con. It's really cool. This is actually by, let me see, Equilibrium Urban Survival Gear. Now, I'm not paid a sponsor. They're not a paid sponsor. I'm not paid whatever. So this is just me because I like this shit. I ran across them at a Comic-Con, and the guy selling it was showing me all the different pouches and compartments that you could attach to this and other ones. And he actually had this set up here, and he was wearing it. And the first thing he said sold me on it. He's like, "Oh, this is my Chewie setup." And I was like, "What? Chewie? Like as in Chewbacca?" He's like, "Absolutely, Chewie." So, I mean, I had to get it, right? I am such a nerd. Okay, so let's get into it. I mean, this is the pack. I bring it pretty much every paranormal themed experience that I go through. I bring this with me, whether it's in my car, waiting to be used, or I usually show up wearing it. So let's open it up, and we're going to go through everything. I have a list here on this other screen where I'm going to cheat. It's my cheat sheet. Basically, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to tell you what it is and basically why I use it. And if there's any other suggestions that you have, if there's other equipment that you use that has been helpful for solving mysteries, please let me know in the comments or send me a message through Facebook. All right? Cool. So the first one up is a spirit level. Spirit level is really good for, checking furniture, floors, doors that are level or not level. I mean, that's the big deal. If something is slanted or out of alignment, they could potentially move on their own. And one of the big things is if you're using a trigger object, especially one that's rounded, if it's like a tennis ball or any kind of other ball that can roll across the floor, and you put it in a certain spot on the floor, and maybe vibration from people walking around or sitting. Sometimes people don't sit on the floor and just sit gently. They usually go boom, and there's some vibration going on, especially for hefty people like me. But that little vibration could knock a ball loose and make it go further if the floor is slanted, if it's not level. If there's a dip or like a little trail because of foot traffic over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, in some places, and you could tap that ball easily with a little vibration and make it go down the little trail. Another thing is that if say a door is not on the hinges right, or the hinges are uneven and they're just slightly off and not level, that could easily make a door open by itself, because the weight of the door itself, because it's on a slant, would want to make it go open up. or close, depending on which way it's slanted. So that's basically why I use this. I check the floors, I check the doors, I check anything that looks out of alignment. And this one's pretty cool. I mean, it's got, you probably saw in the cutscene that it's got the angles here. Let me see if it comes up and focus. There we go. So it can tell you what the angle is if it's off, even by a little bit, which is really good. That's handy. Focus. All right, moving on. Put that right there. What's next? Tape measure. So a tape measure is pretty important if you want to know distances. Basically, okay, so I use this to measure the gap in windows to see how big of a gap there are, like for air coming in, differences in air pressure, because the air pressure is a big deal with, especially with bedroom doors opening and closing by themselves, quote unquote. Air pressure is a big deal, has a big effect on it. So I usually measure the gaps in the windows. What else do I do? Distances between the witness and what they witnessed. That's a tongue twister. If you want to know how far away something is, because most people will estimate, or rather guesstimate, distances for something, whether they saw it like across the field and they're like, oh, I saw it, it was over there and it was probably like 10 feet tall, or it ran 20 feet. You can actually go out there and measure distances and get an accurate measurement, which is really good, because then sometimes that tells you the difference between, is it possible they moved really fast or faster than normal, like a normal human being would do? Is it possible to cover that distance in such a time? If they see a figure and they think it's like a Bigfoot and it's 10 feet or 12 feet tall, you can go by eyewitness points and pinpoint exactly, like on other, other features, other environmental features like marks on a tree, and measure how tall something would be. Yeah, there you go. Flashlights. Flashlights are a big deal. You really need them. And I also have a UV one. Ooh, look, purple. Ooh. I always carry flashlights, extra flashlights, because for some reason most ghost hunters love to do all of their stuff in the dark. They do it in the dark. But anyway, seriously, you need flashlights to see around, because it's not only when they turn out the lights and you have to deal with a room that's completely dark, but sometimes the locations are, there's multiple buildings and you have to walk between the buildings, and it's night, late at night, and you want to be able to see. So I always have flashlights. Put these over here. Tools are the next big thing. That's in the front compartment here. So I carry a lot of tools. Screwdriver with different bits. I have a Leatherman's tool here, a multi-tool, and then I have a small screwdriver set that I take. This actually helps a lot with equipment. When you're not sure about the equipment that you're using and you need to change batteries, or something's broken, you need to fix it, this has actually saved me a lot of time. And then, of course, when you want to go further with that, there's extended equipment. And as you can see, I'll throw up a cutscene here, where this is my forensic table, if you will. And basically, it's for taking pictures and measuring things. I've done it every time I take apart some kind of device. I use this to take pictures and get accurate measurements. But you also need something like a hacksaw sometimes to open up equipment that is sealed shut, because the manufacturer, usually like one or two people, don't want you to look inside, steal their idea or copy them, whatever. But on the other side of that, I'm not trying to steal ideas. I'm trying to figure out how equipment works. So tools are really important. I want to see the inside of it. I want to see what makes it tick. I want to see what's going on, how it works, interacts, what components are really being used. Is what claimed to be in there really in there? That's a big deal. Somebody says, oh, it measures EMF and it measures radiation, other radiation, or it measures this and that, and you open up and there's like nothing in there that could measure what they say it measures. There's a problem. All right, really important. You need a Cosy for your beer and a bottle opener, also for your beer. These are important. Ghost hunters, paranormal people in general, love to party. So make sure you are properly equipped to deal with any situation that comes up. There you go. Alright, so the next thing I have is, this is probably something most of you that are watching this never thought of. These are counters, and I'll show a close-up right here. But they're really tiny. They actually fit on my finger like this, and I can hold it pretty simple. And what I use these for, there's two reasons. One is for psychics, and one is for EVP sessions, or ghost box sessions, or whatever you want to call them. You know, where people want to communicate or try to communicate with ghosts or other things. So what I do is I hold these, I put this on my finger, and I usually color code them. Green is for ghosts, because it's a Slimer, and then the black one is for psychics, and the blue one is for any other reason I need. But basically what I do is I hold it in my finger, and if I'm sitting with a psychic that claims to be psychic, I hit this button every time they ask me a question. And not just, hey, how you doing? That's not what I'm talking about. But if they're talking about, oh, I see like a J figure, or a father figure, you know, is your father passed? Like, asking me if my father passed, that's a question. If they have a J sounding name, and they say, oh, have you heard of a Jason, John, Jeremy, whatever, that's a question. Actually, it could be 3 questions, you know, if you want to get technical about it. But I count how many questions during the session, and I keep a data log of that, how many times I've been asked questions. The other time I use it is when I'm observing a EVP session or a ghost box session. And the problem with that, the reason that I count, or what I'm counting, is that I've often experienced where ghost hunters will ask a question and they get some kind of response that they interpret as an answer, yet it doesn't have anything to do with the question that they actually asked. And then the conversation shifts. It takes a left turn or a right turn, goes a different direction. So every time a response comes through and that interpreted response changes the direction of the conversation, I push the button. And then I count how many times at the end of the night. I keep track of how many times a interpreted response changed the course of the conversation. Basically, the broken radio is dictating where the conversation goes. That's how I've seen it, and that's how it comes across to me. So I try to keep track of that and see how often that happens. All right, so the next up is a digital audio recorder. I have one, yes. I don't do EVP sessions with it. Most of the time I use this just to dictate notes. So if something's going on, and it's much easier to talk into this than to write it down on a piece of paper. So I usually keep notes on this and transcribe it later. However, I do also use it during EVP sessions. Not that I think I'm talking to ghosts, but I do it to record the area from a different angle, from a different position. That way, if say like everybody is on one corner of the room and they're doing their talking to ghost thing, I'll stand on the other side of the room and record the entire session. That way I have a record of what's going on too, and if there's a noise that's behind me or if it's outside and I pick it up, I can make note of it right away. And that's happened to me before, where I've been in a different part of the room and I heard people talking outside, and the main group interpreted that as a response from ghosts rather than the people that were outside smoking. So it does happen, and so this helps me to keep track of what's going on. Next up, I have a two-way radio. I always carry one for a few reasons. One, it's communication. So I can talk to everyone else in the group, because most of the groups that I do interact with have two-way radios, and they use it to keep in touch, to signal when the next switch, when one team is going to move from another one, or if something's going on and they need help or assistance or whatever. It's also for demonstration purposes too, because a lot of things like EMF detectors, the REM pods, are easily influenced by this. Really easy. And when you're inside of a house, like just tests that I've done, I've been able to be like 30, 40, or almost 50 feet away inside of a building and manipulate a REM pod quite easily with this thing. Same thing with a K2 meter. Although the REM pod was a much further distance, like I could manipulate that from much further away than like a K2 meter. I had to be more, I think about 15 feet from a K2 meter to make it go off. Alright, so next up we have I have a magnifying glass and what's called a loop. These are both, they're basically both magnifying glasses, and I use this to look for detail in different things. For example, I was just at a museum that has a children's book that they claim has blood on the cover. And I was using both of these in order to look at the material, the substance, much better. And it helps with pictures, video, mostly pictures, especially older photographs. If you don't know what film is, ask your parents. But this one goes right on. It basically goes on to the surface or something. Wow, that's bright. Look at that. That's all washed out. But it goes onto the surface like that. And if I want to read something, I'll do it this way. Goes on here, and let me see. There we go. That's a little bit better. And then you can shine a light on the side. It illuminates everything, and then you basically put your eye down like this. I do have a picture. I think I can throw it up on here and show you what I'm doing with it. But then this has a little light right there. It lights up and it just lets you see things much clearer, sharper detail. So next up, notebooks. Like, I keep notebooks all the time, and I have notebooks, and some people out there constantly try to see what I write down because I take a lot of notes and they're always looking. But basically the notes is that's what a notebook is for, to write shit down, to keep track of what's going on, experiences, details, and descriptions of the details and descriptions of events that are going on. If you saw something, if you heard something, you write down the details. I also have, in the back of mine, I have various charts. I have the EMF spectrum. I have frequencies for AM and FM. I have hearing ranges for different kind of animals, including humans, dogs, cats. Visible spectrum, light waves, what hertz they're at, and more. And also in there, and this is something a lot of people do ask me and bug me about, this piece of paper that I carry around with me. It's a chart. You can't see it all, but basically it's a checklist, and it shows all the equipment that I know of that ghost hunters use, mostly ghost hunters, because that's usually who I deal with. I put up top where I am, the date, the team or group that's having it or hosting it, and then all the different pieces of equipment that I know of that are being used. And then I check them off if I see them. So if a group is using a REM pod and a K2 meter, check it off, check it off. If they're using a piece of equipment that I don't know, there's space down the bottom here so I can fill it in. And that's more for data logging for me. I keep a Excel spreadsheet of all this equipment to see what's common, what's used more than others. And also, like, it's for terminology. Like energy is probably the most misused term in paranormal. So I like to keep track of how many times it's used during investigations and ghost hunts and lectures and stuff like that. Always have pens with you, pens, pencils, whatever you prefer. I know some people don't like pens. I love pens. The entire front pouch here is mostly pens, so that I can write. Oh, there's another counter. Cool. And a pair of glasses, because I need cheaters. So that's notebooks. Make sure you have them. You just need them. Something that everybody probably already knows: extra batteries. Always need extra batteries. Double A's, triple A's, 9 volts. Always make sure. It's probably a good idea. Like, I keep a few in here, like one, because I don't really carry too many things that require batteries, except for like the audio recorder and my TwoWay radio. That's about it. Flashlights, yeah. So I don't really need much else. So I don't carry a lot of batteries, but I know, most of the ghost hunters and other enthusiasts that I interact with have a lot of equipment. So you might want to just have an extra case, like a separate case, just for all these batteries. That's what I do. This you've probably heard about this before, but I swear in the last 2 decades that I've been doing this, I've never seen somebody actually carry it. This is baby powder, and I use this for a variety of experiences. I've recently used it. I was in Gettysburg, and I was at it's called the Lookout House, and one of the things that they were doing the night I was there was table tipping, and it's one. If you don't know what table tipping is, I suggest you look it up. I'll try to put a link. I think I wrote an article about it. I'm not sure, but table tipping is basically you put your hands on the table and the table starts moving because you're asking the spirits to do it. Here's the thing. Most of the time, it's the people. And I say most of the time. I want to say all the time, but I can never be 100% sure. But most of the time, it's the people doing it. And one way to get around that is to coat the top with baby powder. Because once you put your fingers on that, they slide. And you're not going to have a good grip on the table. You won't be able to move it. And that's every time I've done it, the table never moves. So it's also good to put it on the floor. If you suspect someone's walking around or messing with things, you can put it on the floor and look for footprints later. You can put it on a device. I mean, a lot of devices that you would have to manipulate manually by pushing buttons and stuff, dust this stuff on there. So that if you have a trigger object, I mean, that's even better. A trigger object, instead of making somebody or sitting there and saying, okay, ghosts, make this roll, push this over, knock this over, coat the thing in baby powder and see if you get any fingerprints, because in order to manipulate something, you need to physically manipulate it. So there's got to be some kind of contact. So that's what I carry that all the time. And because of that, I carry wipes, baby wipes, because honestly, be professional, clean your shit up. If you're going to put baby powder all over the place, clean that shit up before you go, because it gets everywhere. Everywhere. Ugh. Next up is a paper bag and Q-tips. I'm almost out. There you go. So that's that, and these are plastic bags, and this is for physical evidence. Whether it's like Bigfoot scat, which is poop, hair, maybe there's some kind of distortion, or maybe somebody says a UFO landed and it burned the field, so you want to get samples of the grass and the ground and all that stuff that may be scorched, so you can test it. And even with ghost hunting, if somebody says, oh well, this was touched or this and that, I honestly don't know what you would collect for physical evidence in ghost hunting, because like slime's not real. Ghostbusters got it, but it's not real, so I don't know what you would collect. But nevertheless, just in case something comes up, you want to have some kind of containers where you can put it in there and protect it until you get it to a lab or some kind of professional that can test it. The Q-tips, I've used these recently with my buddy Tim Vickers. We investigated the blood that I was talking about earlier in the video. We tested some of it. Well, we're going to test of it. We took some swabs with the Q-tips, and we're going to have it tested to see if it's actually blood or not. So handy to have around. You can also use plastic tubes, like almost a test tubes. Like if the test tubes that you get, like shots, test tube shots or something like that. Little plastic containers, something tiny that you can carry around that's easy to access, easy to carry. Really good to have on hand, just in case. One thing that always is with me is my DSLR. I take this everywhere. I have a good lens on this. This is an 18 to 300 lens, so that I can get wide views, I can get close up. This helps when you're investigating like artifacts, like people that claim to have cursed objects or something like that. You can get pretty close with this and get into that detail so you can study it later. Speaking of cameras, I use another camera, and this is my baby. I got this last year for Christmas. This is awesome. I want to throw in the little cutscene here because it's so cool. It deserves a little wraparound view. But this is a 360 camera. It's a 360 degree camera. I can put it on a stand, and you put it on a monopod with a little tripod at the bottom, and you put it in the middle of the room. It connects to my phone, and I take pictures of everything. And this gives me a better perspective of the entire room because I can look at the entire room wherever I want. I can zoom in. It's great. Usually I take pictures, like when I go to a location, I use my DSLR and I take pictures from the four corners or every corner. If it's a big room with multiple faucet, multiple like little cubby holes and stuff like that, I take it from every corner. I take a picture, but this lets me go right in the center of the room and take a good picture. Also, I can do a video walkthrough, which is really nice. You can do 360 video with this, so I can hold it on the tripod, hold it like this, and have the pod up here and just walk around the entire place, and it'll give me a great record, a great visual record later on, which is really helpful when you want to look at I guess one of the big things is when you get like a pareidolia because of certain objects in a scene that might line up and look like a face or look like a body. And a different perspective, like from a 360 camera, helps me understand what's going on in the place. Really, really cool. Yeah, like it. Okay, so another good tool, which most of us have, pretty much I'm sure everyone has, is a smartphone. These are powerful tools. Not for the fucking like Ghost Radar or Echovox or any bullshit app like that. No, that's not what these are made for. But having this with you, it gives you another camera. It gives you a video camera. It gives you a recording device for notes. And you can also, you have the power of Google, which is amazing. If I can't tell you how many times I've gone on ghost hunts where a question has come up. Somebody's not sure how something works. I mean, that's usually standard, where a piece of equipment that is being used in order to prove ghosts exist is not understood. The people using it just don't know how it works or what it's used for, how to interpret the results. With Google, you can look it up. It's really, really cool. You can look up how EMF works, or what frequencies are within the range of your EMF meter. You know, what does it pick up? You can look up, oh my God, everything. You can, what else can you look up? You can look up frequencies, AM, FM frequencies. You can look up anything. If you have a question, it comes up. Instead of standing there and saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, let's just use it anyway, that's the wrong answer. Look it up. Learn about what you're dealing with. And with the Google, you can have answers right away. History, oh my God, history is great. I mean, if you're at a certain location and you're not sure about the history of something, you can look it up right away. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know ghost hunting teams, some of the ghost hunting teams don't like looking up the history beforehand. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I don't agree with you. I think it's good to look up the history and know the history of what you're dealing with. So when anomalies come up, you can shut them down right away. But yeah, smartphones, awesome to have. Awesome. All right, this is something that I really like. And this is, like with the baby powder, this is something that I think more investigators really should have, just in case. And yeah, this is going in with the intention of, hey, could this be a hoax? But it's not trying to prove definitively it's a hoax. It's going in with the idea this might be a hoax. So this is an RF detector. It's a radio frequency detector, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to throw in some cutscenes here showing you that this is how it works. Basically, you pull the antenna up. It's got lights on the front. It's got a little compass, which is nice. I mean, if you're lost, you can find your way home. But when you turn it on, it has two modes. One is for noise, and one is for vibration, if you want to do it more silently. But basically, this tells you when there's a radio frequency around. And from anything from the Wi-Fi from your router, at your home router, it'll pick it up. Yeah, you got to get close. I mean, this is not going to tell you where these signals are coming from like 30 or 40 feet away. You have to be pretty close. These are bug detectors, basically, and you want to get around the room. You want to get next to people. If you suspect someone's using like a remote control, or if you suspect someone's using even like a two-way radio, because as you can see in the next video, two-way radios will make this go off. You'll be able to track the source. And other things like my key fob for my car, it uses radio frequency, and when I push the button, boom, it tells you, hey, there's a radio frequency. I'm picking it up. So there's so this is really important. It does come in handy. I have used it. There was a case that I worked on where I didn't actually use this, but it inspired me to get this. It happened at a place called Whispers Estate. This was years ago. But there was Whispers Estate was famous for this little girl's voice that would sing. I think London Bridge is Falling Down or something like that. It was a nursery rhyme that it was singing. And people would hear it, not through recordings, but they would hear it with their own ears. After a new owner took over, the singing had stopped. Never occurred again. And when I finally got a chance to go out there and investigate, I found a speaker in the basement of the place. And the speaker was not just tossed there. It was placed deliberately against a pillar, and the wires were laid out deliberately back to the basement area. And in the basement area, there was old CD equipment that was discarded by the previous owner. And another little fact was that the previous owner's brother worked on audio equipment. So there's a good chance that the singing voice was most likely a recording on a CD player that had a remote control. Like, I'm not saying that's 100% true, because I wasn't there when it was actually going on, but all the information led to that, and that inspired me to get a radio frequency detector. So have it with you in case something is if there's like communication going on, especially with like things like REM Pod and the trigger props, like the teddy bears and different stuffed animals that use the same thing. They use the same thing. I'm going to show you. I'll show you what they use. It's not that. It's not that. Here it is. It uses the same thing, a Junior Thurman device, which is exactly what's in the REM Pod. And when you use a two-way radio, which I have over here, and you key it up, it'll make that go off. And if you're standing next to the person, this will go off too. And you'll be able to match it up and say, oh, every time that REM pod goes off, this goes off. So, I mean, it's good. Even if you believe that REM pods and stuff like that actually communicate with ghosts, that's not where we're arguing here. It's good to have one of these around, because if you can, like I just said, if this is going off every time that is going off, that's telling you it's not a ghost, that it's a radio frequency, and you should look for a source. So it's a good tool to have. All right, that's basically it for what's in my bag, I think. What else do I have here? So aside from a few other things, like I have a ruler that also has a magnifying glass on it. What? That's for quick measurements. I have a extra tripod for any of the cameras if I need one. I have a tiny little level. That helps, but it's small, so it fits in there if I just want to check something real quick. And I also have a thing of Band-Aids. I usually keep a bigger first aid kit. First aid kit's really important too, because people get hurt, and you can patch them up real quick. So that's basically it, I think. This compartment is mostly, I have business cards, and my business cards. Ooh, check it out. Yeah, that's right. Business cards are awesome. And that's it. That's really it. So I do have some extended stuff that I use. Extended equipment, I guess. Extended stay equipment. If I know I'm going to stay overnight, and then I bring stuff with me. So I have a DVR system. And I actually just got a new one. It's 8 cameras, high definition, wide angle. I'm showing little clips here. And basically, DVR system is like a 1 terabyte drive, and then again I have 8 cameras that plug into that. I have I don't have a microphone. So I have several microphones I can plug into it, but I usually don't. But that's probably a good idea, just as long as you make sure you tell people that you're recording audio. But the 8 cameras I have stands for them, and these stands are not expensive. I got them from Walmart. I think they're phone mounts, so that the mount that the camera is actually clamped into, that's for your phone, and the tripod came with it. And I think altogether it was like $3 or $3.50 for that set, for the clamp, the mount, and then the tripod, which extends. The legs extend for almost twice the length, which is really cool. So I got 8 of them for all the cameras. It makes it easier to set up. And most of the reason I use these is it helps keep me, helps keep tabs on what's happening outside, what's inside. I don't really, I want to say this without trying to sound mean, but I keep it to watch the environment, which includes the people that are there with me, rather than looking for ghosts. I mean, if a paranormal event happens and I happen to catch it on video, woohoo, awesome. But most of the time I use these cameras to keep everyone else honest, including myself. Because people have a habit of, bumping into things. And that's I want to clarify. It's not always keeping them honest, but there's mistakes that happen. Sometimes people do bump into things, or like a part of their jacket catches on something, catches like on the like a coffee table or a chair or something, and as they walk away, they pull it a little bit, and then they turn around freaking out like, oh shit, that chair just moved by itself. When you look at the tape, you find out it's them. So those are the kind of experiences that I use a DVR system for. What else? Oh, a Faraday box. You don't see this a lot. You don't see Faraday boxes used. You often see the Faraday bags once in a while, and they're small bags, they're mesh bags. But from what I've seen, the ones that I've been able to play with, they don't work. They don't block AM signals. They really don't block FM signals as well as you think they do. So I built this box. I built a box of my own, and it's got several layers of screen door mesh, and also aluminum foil, and it blocks. If you look at this video, as I'm putting it in, I put the radio in, and this is a radio set to an FM station, because I actually don't have a regular radio, but the AM doesn't work on this, but the FM goes in, and as soon as I let go, the sound is gone. And that's because it's blocking the signal so well, I don't even have to close the lid. And that's the big thing. You have to make sure that it blocks the signals that you want to block. The AM, the FM, and then radio waves, the two-way radio waves. In the example that I'm going to show you, I have a K2 meter, and then I have a two-way radio, which, they can affect each other. Well, the radio affects the K2 meter. So when I put them in the box, I don't get the signal anymore. And I don't even have the lid all the way closed, and it blocks it. So if I had the lid closed, there would be nothing escaping. That's the important thing. You have to make sure it blocks all the signals that you're going to deal with. So there you go. Some other things, do-it-yourself testing equipment. I have a variety of testing equipment I have a Ouija board thing that I use. I also have a dowsing rod contraption here that was made by my friend Mitch Silverstein, which is a great thing. You put your rods in there, and you can still hold the handles that you normally use, but it prevents you from manipulating each rod individually, which is really a big deal. And then there's also a bubble level that is there that tells me whether you're tilting it one way or another, or forward or backward, so that we can actually keep a watch and make sure you're holding it steady. And this is none of this stuff is to say that, it's fake. Although I don't believe in it, it's not saying it's fake. It's a piece of testing equipment that says, hey, this takes the variable of your ability to manipulate it out of the equation. So if it still works, it's interesting and it deserves further investigation. So this other one I have is a pendulum tester. So I basically put a pendulum inside a pretzel jar. I took the labels off, and it's a pretzel jar that I cut a hole in the lid and fed it through, put a clamp on it, so then now you can still hold the chain, but you can't swing it back and forth, and therefore manipulate the pendulum to go in the direction that you want. So these are little things that I have. These I bring a lot of these to like conferences that I do, and let people try them. And again, this is extended stay. If I know I'm going to be there overnight or for the weekend, and I know people are going to be there using it, I try to bring this and say, here, try this. Let's see what happens. And the last thing is I usually bring a laptop with me. My laptop is here, and I bring that so I can analyze video, photographs, audio, whatever. Look stuff up, write stuff up, whatever. Laptop's always good to have. There's a lot of programs that you can use. You can feed cameras into it. Yeah. So that's it. That basically wraps up everything that I use on a routine basis. Like, that's standard. It's if there's an experience that comes up and it calls for something else, of course I'm gonna get that. And I know that other investigators have different kits, or they might have a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever. But this is what I usually bring, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some ideas, and maybe we'll add some devices or objects to your kit, and benefit from this. That's all that's important. That pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Thanks for watching to the end. I appreciate it. I know it was pretty long. If you did enjoy it, if you learned something, please consider giving me a like. It lets me know that these videos are appreciated, and I'll make more. And if you want to, subscribe to the channel so you can get updates when I put more videos out. And if you have ideas for other topics, questions that you have, I do a Ask a Skeptic program once in a while. It's not on a regular routine, but I do it whenever I have a chance. So if you want to submit a question, I'll try and answer it. Other than that, I'll see you around. All right? Never stop learning. Take it easy.